think it is going to be good omen for the country if the judges are paid very fairly and are fed very well. That is where every Tom and Harry in the country may be able to obtain justice. Otherwise, justice will continue to be for sale. And if it is for sale, I am sorry for the country.
Instances of conflicting judgments coming from our judiciary. One court is saying A and the other court is saying B on the same matter. And then when you talk about it, they will tell you that, after all, it's because he who plays the piper dictates the tune. When you go to the states governors, they're able to, at least they give them they give them befitting house, cars, and all of that. So even if their salaries are increased, if you go back to the states and still the state governors are the one that still call the shots, isn't it going to still refer back to that selling our justice system?
Let me tell you, you see, the issue about these conflicting judgments. These judgments or our laws are subject to different interpretations, and everybody has a different understanding of what he read.
Some other persons say, some states, I read this morning, states like Kano, state like Kogi, or your state say they might not, budget came out to say that they might not be able to afford the new minimum wage. What are your thoughts in this regard? Two questions and I'd like you to embody them in one breath.
Okay.
And that's one. And then secondly, if we are talking of a 300% increase in the salaries of our judicial workers, how about the civil servants then and the others?
Well, you see, when it comes to salaries and wages increment, there are certain principles that are being observed before you say this is what is going to happen. When you take judges as a group, you can count them on your fingers, meaning that they are not that plenty in number. When you talk of the civil servant in generality, there are 100,000 of them. So the size affects what is going to them, state resource.
So are you saying that numbers was a major determinant here?
Quite all right, number is sort of the determinant. Even in your family, if you have a child and you are only 2 or 3 of you in your family, and I have 10 members in my family, the way I spend on my family and the way you spend, the quality of the spending in your own family will be higher than my own, because you have only 3 people. In my own, I have 10 people. So we sacrifice quality for quantity.
Welcome back. If you just joined us, this is The Conversation. We're reaching you from KAFTAN's television studio here in the nation's capital, Abuja. If you just joined us, you've actually missed out on a whole lot, but then you can still join the second part of the show. My guest on the show today is Kabir Kukandaka, who is Federal Commissioner of Revenue, Mobilization and Allocation, Fiscal Commission, that's RMAFC. Great to have you on the show today, sir.
Thank you, Annabelle.
It's been a while. How have you been?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you. How are you?
I'm doing well. How is Nigeria treating
that's
you?
That's great. Oh, Nigeria is grilling everybody.
Is it grilling you?
It's grilling everybody.
Or is it different from the way it's grilling me and you?
Are you sure? We go to the same market.
Okay. Now, quite a number of things that we need to discuss, but then we will see how we can manage the few minutes that we have. Now, we see that the Senate has passed a bill seeking to increase the salaries and allowances of judges at all levels. The upper legislative chamber passed the bill for the third reading on Wednesday after Mohammed Mungunu, chairman of the Senate Committee on Judiciary, presented the report. The legislation passed the second reading at the Senate in May after President Bola Ahmed Tinubu asked that the National Assembly to pass the bill. The bill, if passed by the House of Representatives and signed by the President, will pave the way for Chief Justice of Nigeria to earn 64 million naira annually. The new salaries and allowances represent a 300% increase from the current earnings of the judicial officers. It was also we also found out that the President of the Court of Appeal will be entitled to 62.4 million naira and justices of the Supreme Court will earn 61.4 million naira. All heads of the various courts, such as the Chief Judge of the Federal High Court, the President of the National Industrial Court, and the Chief Judge of the Federal Capital Territory, High Court, amongst others, will earn the same basic salary of 7.9 million naira annually. All right, now let's take our conversation to this matter. Increase, 300% increase in the salaries of judicial workers. I've heard quite a number of people say that, oh, that is way too much. Some other persons say at this time when you're talking about, when there's still this dilly-dally with regards to the new minimum wage, should we go up or go down? It's either here or neither here nor there. Let's get your thoughts. What exactly triggered the reason for this increase in the salary of judicial officers, especially at such a time as this?
Okay, let me say that I would like to comment over this issue in my personal capacity as a Nigerian who has right to contribute to a debate. You see, the increase of salaries of the judicial workers by 300%, it is something that is welcomed by most sections of Nigerians. I was an actor in the exercise, and across the country, majority of the citizens, when public hearing was conducted, were in favor of increase in remuneration for the judicial workers for certain number of reasons. You know that in any democracy, the future of any nation is dependent upon laws and orders of the country. Where there is no law, there is going to be an anarchy. Where the judges are not judging fairly, there is also going to be chaos in the society. Where justice is purchasable, meaning to say that you can go and purchase justice because the justices or the judges are poor, it is not going to speak well of any nation. And in terms of international relations and businesses, Nigeria would not be a country to look upon. So until when we have solid laws and regulations in the country, until when we have good courts who are very firm, who can take decision in favor of somebody who is the right citizen. What I mean by the right is somebody who has been offended, somebody who has gone to court to seek justice. But where you cannot obtain justice, that country is going to be a country in anarchy. So given that 300%, the main philosophy behind the 300% is to make the judges to earn a living salaries, and then for them not to look at the side for any additional income in order to live a very nice life. So because of that, maybe government in their own wisdom and through agitation from the Nigerian Bar Association, they are able to push through with their demand. And this demand is undergoing processes, and as you have said, is just virtually about being approved by the National Assembly and assented to by Mr. President. So I think it is going to be good omen for the country if the judges are paid very fairly and are paid very well. That is where every Tom and Harry in the country may be able to obtain justice. Otherwise, justice will continue to be for sale. And if it is for sale, I am sorry for the country.
Okay, now I hear you talk about the fact that so that they're able to earn a living salary, and then so that justice is not for sale. Now, if this is approved and then they're being paid this 300% increase, what if you we've heard of situations where, especially in states where some state governors would always use this. Some judges, I hate to use that word use, but they always like to take advantage of some of judicial officers, because we've seen so many instances of conflicting judgments coming from our judiciary. One court is saying A and the other court is saying B on the same matter. And then when you talk about it, they will tell you that after all, it's because he who plays the piper dictates the tune. When you go to the states governors, they're able to, at least they give them they give them befitting house, cars, and all of that. So even if their salaries are increased, if you go back to the states and still the state governors are the one that still call the shots, isn't it going to still refer back to that selling our justice system?
Let me tell you, you see, the issue about these conflicting judgments. These judgments or our laws are subject to different interpretations, and everybody has a different understanding of what he read. Having said this, it is equally true that some judges are taking advantage of these interpretations and give bad judgments in accordance with their wish. But let me tell you now, under the renewed hope agenda of Mr. President, the judiciary is undergoing reform. After this reformation, I am sure many things will be harmonized and all these bad judgments will give away. And to also about the state, let me tell you interesting something again. In the state, there are certain high court judges where governors will not dare take their cases to those courts because they knew that those judges are upright, they stand for justice, they stand for no nonsense. So we have such kind of judges in the country, although they may be dotted, not plenty enough. But I'm telling you, with time, we will overcome this nonsense. Time will come when our judges will be able to deliver judgments as it is.
Okay, I'll go back to the question I asked you earlier when I talked about the new minimum wage. Some say we can afford, some say we cannot afford. But let's start with the fact that, like I always say, that negotiation about the new minimum wage is looking like when you and your parent, especially your mom, goes to the market or go to a meat seller, the abattoir, and then you pick up a meat and then you tell the meat seller, I will buy it. How much are you selling? The meat seller tells you it is 5,000. You say, no, let me buy 3,000. The person say, okay, bring money. You say, no, I'm not paying 3,000 again. I want to pay 2,000. They say, okay, pay 2,500. That's what it's looking like. And who are we talking about? The workers, the Nigerian workers here. So some other persons say, some states, I read this morning, states like Kano, state like Kogi or your state say they might not, budget came out to say that they might not be able to afford the new minimum wage. What are your thoughts in this regard? Two questions and I'd like you to embody them in one breath. Okay. And that's one. And then secondly, if we are talking of a 300% increase in the salaries of our judicial workers, how about the civil servants then and the others?
Well, you see, when it comes to salaries and wages increment, there are certain principles that are being observed before you say this is what is going to happen. When you take judges as a group, you can count them on your fingers, meaning that they are not that plenty in number. When you talk of the civil servant in generality, there are 100,000 of them. So the size affect what is going to them. Let me give you example of teachers in the country. Since time immemorial, the Nigerian Union of Teachers have been on strike for salary increase.
Right.
There was a time when we were at the verge of having teacher salary scale, TSS, but that could not come to light. Why is it that it cannot come to light? Why is it that we can pay doctors huge amount of money, not the teachers? Doctors are fewer in number, teachers are plenty in number. So when you say you want to pay the teachers a living wage, it is going to take large chunk of the state resource.
So are you saying that numbers was a major determinant here?
Quite all right, number is sort of the determinant. Even in your family, if you have a child and you are only 2 or 3 of you in your family, and I have 10 members in my family, the way I spend on my family and the way you spend, the quality of the spending in your own family will be higher than my own because you have only 3 people. In my own, I have 10 people. So we sacrifice quality for quantity. You understand? So at times, it is becoming a factor that is hindering such an increase. And then the decision makers or the policy makers or the politicians, they are looking at it this way. If, for example, you are a state governor and you are collecting only 5 billion naira from the federation account, and then you have a workforce which is not more than 5,000 or 10,000 or even 100,000, assuming you have a workforce of 100,000 and you have a population of 3 million, where 100,000 are taking over 50% of what is coming to the state. What is going to the remaining 2.9 million citizens is not up to 10% or 20% of the allocation to the state. You see that there is not going to be a meaningful development. So these are some of the intricacies of this salary increase. But to say that some state may not be able to pay.
I was going to ask you that. Is that possible? Especially states like Kano, Oyo, Kogi might not be able to pay. Is that possible?
Well, they may be able to pay. But after paying, there will be little left for development. So if you were a governor, popularly elected, and with high expectation of the public, when you take 90% of your resources just to appease not more than 2 or 3% of the population, when it comes to the election, how are you going to face the people? What are you going to tell them? That you have paid the salaries of the workers? So this is a very, very difficult situation for everybody. Agreed. The way things are, definitely the workers of this country deserve a better pay. But we need to have, maybe we need to have two approaches. Nigerians, we are very, very dishonest. I will recall that during President Jonathan period, there was a time when there was a constitution review. In that review, it was recommended that labor issues should be on concurrent list in the constitution, meaning to say that each state should be able to deal with their workers according to their own resources. At that time, the Nigerian Labour Congress said, no, issue of labor must be centralized. If the issue of labor is centralized, it means all the time minimum wage should also be centralized. But the question is, if Lagos, Rivers, Delta, which are very rich states, maybe Kano, Kaduna, and some few other states may be able to pay the national minimum wage, there are some states which their allocation from the federation account is just barely over 2 billion. So imagine workers' salary taking over 1.something billion. Maybe you are being left with about just 500 million or 600 million to do roads.
Honorable Commissioner of the Board, how is it possible for those states to creatively generate income that pays their salary to?
Well, you see, the whole issue is where I'm driving at. In this country, maybe what we need to do, what those governors need to tell Mr. President is that they should look at the revenue allocation formula. Currently, the federal government is taking about 54% or 52%, sorry. The state and local government are taking the remaining 48%. Now, maybe what we need to do is to adjust even by 1%. Let 1 or 2% go to local government and state. If 2% goes down, probably no state would say they may not be able to pay the minimum wage. And I have seen it, for example, in America. They have a national minimum wage. But that national minimum wage is just a kind of theory that this is what we want every citizen to be paid, whether in private sector or whether in the public sector. This is the minimum you should pay. It's a kind of standard. But however, if you have the ability to pay higher than the national minimum wage, you can go ahead and pay. If you may not be able to pay, you now get excuse from the government and you pay less than the national minimum wage.
Okay.
So there are some states that are paying less, there are some states that are paying more, and there are states that are paying the national minimum wage. That is in America. So there are 3 categories of payment of the national minimum wage. So we have to be flexible here. So if we say that we're going to pay a minimum wage of 500,000 or 400,000 to a worker, maybe Lagos will be able to pay. Maybe my state will not be able to pay. Maybe Yobe may not be able to pay, and some other smaller states. About the issue of the increasing their revenue, to argument.
Right.
You see, the problem with us here is that although every nation thrive or survive on taxation, but here in our climate or in our locality, we are not yet there in terms of taxation. We have come from a background that everything is being given for free. So people now, even the water they drink, if you ask them to pay, they don't want to pay. And that is one of the problems of democracy. The water that you drink, the government will come and take loan, provide good water scheme. They will ask you only to be paying certain amount of money, which is reasonable. But the citizens will not like to pay. Everywhere, nobody wants to pay tax.
Because they all see it as their national cake.
They want to they see it as the national. And naturally, human beings don't want to pay tax. You remember early those days, even during the early independence or pre-independence, there was the Aba women riot. It is over taxation. Everywhere in my state, when the military administrator came, that was Chris I.O.G., he had wanted to implement certain tax reform. There was massive rioting. Everywhere, people want to live freely. But in all honesty, no any country that citizens are living free.
But are you saying that Nigerians always want to live freely, especially with regards to tax? They've increased tax, but Nigerians are still paying. They're not out on the streets like what you have in Kenya. You
see, what with the taxation, we are not as, I cannot know how I can describe our relationship with Kenya, but what I'm trying to say is this is a country that we have started. Initially, when we started, we were paying tax. Everybody was paying tax. We paid school fees. If you are in class 1, you pay 3 shillings. Class 2, you pay 6 shillings. Class 3, you pay 9 shillings. Class 4, you pay 12 shillings. This is how we have gone through our primary education. And when you go to secondary school, you will be charged according to the profession of your father. If your father is a contractor, is a farmer, is a driver, is this, they will give you your own school fees. So your school fees may be higher than my own. And similarly, in the government service, we used to fill forms. How many dependents do you have? How many dependents? If you are having 5 or 10 dependents, I'm having only 2 dependents, I have no children, maybe my tax will be 3%, your tax will be 1%, somebody's tax will be even 0 in that year because he has a lot of liability. That taxation system was very humane.
So that you're saying that that's sustainable.
Yes, because
this day in Nigeria.
But now what we have, for example, when you have pay as you earn, whether you have 1,000 dependents, whether you have 2,000 dependents, whether I have nobody, if we are on the same level, we are paying the same tax.
All right. Our time is
you see, so because of this problem, like I said, during the Second Republic, that is where we got it wrong because of the politics I was talking. When the different parties come with their manifestos, UPN say we're going to give free education in the Western Nigeria. MPN say we're going to build additional housing and we are going to do green revolution. There's going to be food in the country. PRP, the People's Redemption Party, say we are going to abolish tax. So as soon as they were able to win Kano and Kaduna, what they did was automatically to abolish taxation. And it is from there, all state take cue. And nobody was paying tax again. And because of that, everybody has tested that, so we cannot pay tax and we can still thrive as a country. So nobody wants to pay tax.
So we prefer tax holidays.
So everybody is on holidays. That's one of the problems.
All right, our time is fast, but if you can help us, let's quickly touch on this controversial purchase of the presidential jets. What are your thoughts in that regard? Well,
I am not very clearly, I have not understood in the recent times, I've not been following the media, so I'm not very much in the argument. I don't understand much about it. But
some people are for, some people are against, and those who are against say it's not a good time.
Yes, I understood that even right from, even before the president came in, there was agitation from the sector of the community that the presidential fleet in Nigeria is even too heavy. That Nigerian government should lease or sell some of the jets so that there'll be one or two. Or let the Nigerian president be using public transportation like the European do. But I seriously object to that. Governance is not an easy matter. And there should be exclusive privilege for any president.
But if it's done and is achieved in other climes, what's wrong with it's not happening here? What's wrong with having the president even take a particular, even if it's business class of Air Peace or Nigerian, other, so that I don't
the level of education, the level of tolerance, the level of understanding is totally different thing. We are Africans, we are Nigerians, we are a developing nation, we are a country full of prejudice, we are a country full of hatred. So because of all these things, our leaders need to be protected. So I cannot see for a president who is passing sleepless nights to make everything governable, to make everything workable, to make our economy improve. Why is it that it will pain you when a president is being bought a new jet? What is the big deal about it? What is the big deal about it?
It's not paining me. I'm only saying...
Not you. I mean, those who are crying. You are only reflecting what they are saying.
Yes, but what most of them is saying is that things are quite expensive at the moment. If we cannot afford it, why not just prioritize major on our major things and minor on our minor? I
agree with you that we need to prioritize, and there is also time for anything. Where the country is buoyant, the economy is doing well, maybe certain luxuries can be afforded.
Right.
Where the economy is not doing good, where we have a lot of challenges, maybe we have to tarry for a while before we do other things. So that one I agree with you. But to say that there shouldn't be new jet for the president or new airplane for the president, I don't buy that idea.
Thank you so much, Kabir Kukandaka. It's always a pleasure having these discussions with you.
Thank you, Annabelle.
All right, viewers, that's where we end this conversation for today. We've been chatting with Kabir Kukandaka, who is Federal Commissioner of RMAFC, and it's been a wonderful time here on D-Conversation. I'm sure today's conversation or edition of D-Conversation must have rightly educated, entertained, and informed you. I'll see you again next time. My name is Annabelle Oji. God bless you and yours, and God bless the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Good morning.